Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Thursday, the 28th of January, 2021.
Thursday.
I almost made that mistake there.
What? Would say 2020?
Yeah, but no, it is clearly 2021. And
Yes.
of course, the Joe and Joe Show, as it is every night, brought to you by our wonderful sponsors at Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest source provider, rock salt
Source?
source, rock salt source, and the provider of everything you need when it comes to dealing with winter storms. Should we have to deal with one early next week, Omni is the place to go. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, just north of the Southern State Parkway. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Don't forget, folks, they are a local business, and at a time when local businesses are having it difficult, this is a great way to support your local businesses. And Omni, by the way, during winter storms opens up early in the morning at 3 a.m. So you can get your crew out there, or you can get yourself out there and get whatever it is you need to take care of whatever winter storms lie our way. And it does seem like we have at least something lying our way for early next week. And Joe and I'm sure, are going to discuss it. But first things first, Mr. Rayo, the cold. Everyone's complaining. They've
Well,
wanted
there you go.
they've wanted
I mean,
winter.
I took a look at a few of the local TV weathercasts tonight, and you want to know what really bugs the heck out of me, Joe?
What is
Is
that?
the fact is the fact that here we are in the throes of, albeit it's going to be a short-lived thing, but still we're in the throes of a very frigidly cold air mass, the coldest by far that we have seen so far this year, this winter season. A cold air mass that's not maybe quite cold enough to call a deadly type of cold air mass in
Oh
terms of
no,
wind chill,
no, not at all.
but but still significant enough so that you don't want to be outside for too long a period of time. You need to stress that if anybody's going to be out tonight, or especially tomorrow morning, when wind chills throughout the tri-state area, I think, are going to be sub-zero, and in fact, in some cases, maybe as low as 20 below zero. This, I think, is what should be hammered away. Boom, boom, boom. This is the headline. This is the main thing. But what annoys the heck out of me is seeing weathercasts that say, well, it's going to be cold out there tonight, but now let's talk about the storm for next week. I
Yes.
mean, they leapfrog right over this, straight to the storm. They ran to it like a starving dog running toward a piece of meat. And quite frankly, I'm not appreciative of that, because you take one thing at a time, and the storm that in question is still a good 4 or 5 days away. And we really don't have all of the answers to what this thing is going to be. But of course, naturally, the illusion, the hints. Oh, this could be a big one. I mean, we're talking about, enough already.
Right.
Let's talk about the cold weather, and we'll get to the storm. Yes, boys and girls, we'll get to the storm and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But first, talk about the cold weather tonight and tomorrow. My goodness,
Well,
it's crazy.
with respect to that storm, because of course it started yesterday, but then it gained full steam in today via social media, with people throwing out numbers that they came
Of
up
course,
with. And they came up with those numbers, Joe, using incredible forecasting techniques that involve clicking on a map and looking at the number on it. Okay. I put up a post on my website late this afternoon that really kind of got into the meteorology of what's going on. I don't know if you saw what I wrote on Facebook as a lead in to this post, but I will read it to you because I think you might appreciate this. So, what
I will appreciate this, Anthony Camuccio. Yeah, I know that people are excited. They will get excited in the long term of things. I'm sure the excitement will gradually build. What I object to is the fact that you're tossing aside a significant weather event in terms of the cold and the wind chill tonight and tomorrow morning, completely just pushing it off to one side and immediately jumping 4 or 5 days out to a storm, which, as we have seen, as Joe and I have seen in the past over 40 years for each of us, we have seen situations where people get very excited about something 3 or 4 or 5 days in advance. And then when it finally arrives, it's like, I'm
Well,
not saying that it's going to happen this go around, but what I'm saying is, can you wait a little bit? Can you wait at least until we're about 3 days out before we start throwing numbers around and tossing all kinds of craziness? Joe, I'm in case you haven't noticed,
you're
I'm
you're
ranting.
you're ranting big time, and I'm sure our audience is loving every minute of it because I'm usually the one that's going on about stuff. But look, what I truly resent about it, about all of this, the other people can go do whatever they want. If they want to throw numbers out 4 or 5 days in advance, I don't do it. You don't do it. It's their business. If they choose to do that, that then that's what they do. I don't have any control over that. I do, however, have control over what I do, and what I do is certainly through today and probably through tomorrow, because I'm going to be on the road tomorrow, driving back up from Georgia. Um, I'm not mentioning numbers. I'm not mentioning magnitude. I'm simply describing what was happening. I mean, the only thing you could say that I did with respect to numbers is I put up WPC's map that shows on their long range, because it's still in the
Percentages.
long range, that they have a 70 to 90% chance of at least 2 to 3 inches of snow covering a lot of our area. And that's unusual for them because they don't just haphazardly throw up stuff unless they think that there's a real chance that this could happen. And they have an even larger area of 50 to 70. That's the only thing I did. Okay. So what I said
Right.
on so what bothers me is that when it's all over with, I will get people accusing me of hyping stuff up, and I bitterly resent that because I don't do it, haven't done it, never will do it. So that just tells me that the person who puts that up is ignorant because they're not reading, they're not listening, and they're not comprehending. And and I can't stop people from forecast shopping, obviously, but that seems to be what happens because, who can put up the bigger number is what it is. Who can find the
Right.
snow map that produces the biggest double digit number? But what I said on my Facebook post today was, Joe Stradamus on the weekend and the next storm for early next week. Okay, and Joe Stradamus, as many people know, is sort of a character name that I use sometimes when talking about the long range. Uh, Mainly because there is some science to it when you're trying to figure out the long range, but there's also a lot of guessing. So I just kind of someone once came up with the I should call myself Joe Stradamus, and I weaved it into a long range feature that I used to do on TV until it was stopped, and for reasons that I've gone into many times, but I don't need to repeat. I said, I continue. Please note that I am, in capital letters, Joe, not interested in what other people are saying or doing, so don't post about it because I will not respond to it. I don't do theatrics here. I do weather. If you want numbers, you can go forecast shopping among those that are willing to throw out double digit numbers 4 days out. The weekend will be a time for early numbers. Here is an explanation of what is happening in the atmosphere over the next 4 days and why this system is different from the other two we saw this week. I think that pretty much states loud and clear what my position is with regards to what's coming up because it's too early. And as you said, and as I've already seen on a few models, I can see things that could possibly alter the idea of a sizable snowfall for certainly northern areas of the mid-Atlantic states and on up into southern New England. I'm not saying that that's what I'm forecasting or thinking in my mind, but I can see ways that this could wind up being something that gets suppressed further to the south. So just want to make that clear that here we are, 4 days out, and we have still a lot to work through and a lot of options that remain on the table. And
I,
I think you will agree with that.
there are two things that are a little troubling to me. And the first thing, actually, last month with the storm of December 16th and 17th, I brought this up, and eventually it didn't uh, matter because it was the operational that won out as opposed to the ensemble features. But the ensemble for the European has been suggesting that this is going to move in not necessarily on Sunday night or even Monday morning, but more like Monday afternoon and then linger in our area right straight on through into maybe even early Wednesday.
Right.
And and the fact is that the operational model has the storm tracking very slowly and on a path that would take it right into the vicinity of the infamous benchmark, the 4070 box area. Meantime, the ensemble is, as was the case with last month's storm, noticeably more to the south. Now, it could very well be that we could have a repeat now of what happened last month. That is that the ensemble is playing this too far south, eventually works its way further to the north, closer to the coast, like the operational European model is saying, and that we get whomped with 8, 10, 12 inches of snow. That could happen. We don't know if it's going to happen, but right now, taking at face value, I would go with the ensemble and its 50 plus members of the European as opposed to the operational model and suggest, yeah, we'll have some snow, but it's not going to be a monster snowstorm. The other thing, and I mentioned this on a special statement that I put out on my both of my Facebook pages, is that when you look at the GFS, the Omega, both at 700 and 850 for the prime time of this storm early next week, all of the atmospheric energy or Omega is just to the south and just to the east of the tri-state area. Yes, we do get snow, but the lion's share of the really heavy duty stuff, the stuff that some forecasters, not you, not me, Joe, but a few on television alluded to in the double digits category. Well, you'll get double digits, but you're going to need some of that atmospheric energy to whomp on top of you. And right now, the GFS is saying, no, that's not going to happen. So
Right.
these are the things that are inconsistent with pulling the whistle string and saying, big storm coming next week, or the potential for a big storm coming. That potential is a very large word right now. Yeah, there's a lot of potential, but Darryl Strawberry, when he came up with the Mets in 1980, he had the potential of getting into the Hall of Fame. And of course, we know that Darryl never made it, and maybe this storm system isn't going to make it either. We'll have to wait and see.
Um, uh, I'm getting a kick out of this, but Margaret Florio, who has since been hidden on the chat board, said that I am known for hyping up storms and leaving and letting people down. Really, really.
You can't win,
You know,
Joe.
you poor dear. You really, you know,
You
you
can't
real
win.
reading and listening comprehension probably were not one of your strongest suits. Let's put it that way. Um, yeah, and that just really bugs the crap out of me. And I just want, it's so ridiculous. That statement is so beyond ridiculous. Okay, that it warranted that response. Okay, so
Look on the somebody said to me, this is way back further back on the chat boards. He said, I don't know why Rayo was complaining. He was the one who was calling for a backloaded winter. This is just what he's been saying, calling for. Yeah, but this might not be the one. You know,
right.
we're just crossing over from January into
Right.
February.
Well, the big storm we've been talking about for 570 years has finally developed, but it's too far out to see.
Abe, you
Uh,
would have loved this. Abe,
I,
Abe's with you.
I have to find this on the chat board from earlier, and I'm going to get there. Hang on. Um, because it really kind of hit home. And now, of course, I can't find it. But Charlie Baker, I love you. Okay, I just want you to know I love you and I love what you said. With regards to somebody that puts a thumbs down on a live stream before it even starts, he said you really something to the effect of your bowels need to be scoured. you know, I thought that was well put. Like I said, Charlie, I adore you. All right, so since you want to talk about the cold, and I think it's certainly legitimate that you talk about the cold, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to put
This
up.
was on the this was on the chat board, by the way. Sal Blandino is on the chat board
Oh,
tonight,
oh,
and he said
my
it's
day,
he said,
my day, week, and month are made, Salvatore. I am so glad that you are on the board.
but it's like the December snow we had, and I had to be stuck at home for days again. I will be extremely upset and mad. Hey Sal, I excuse me, I have been stuck at home for the last 18 months.
I
You're
mean,
complaining about a
we're
few
still.
days. I've been here for 18 months,
I
Sal.
mean, being stuck at home isn't exactly something new, since most of us have been stuck at home pretty much for the last 11 months.
Yeah,
So I mean, we're
exactly.
not really breaking news here. All right,
Right.
so I have up, Joe, since we want to talk about the cold, I have up a low temperature forecast for tomorrow morning in the Northeast. And William Uber asked a question because we talked about yesterday the fact that how cold it is up at roughly the 5,000 foot level, or 850 millibars in weather speak. He wants to know, why is it that that cold air, that bitter cold air, and the cold temperatures on the surface don't match up? Why, I
5,000
thought
feet.
that I thought you could explain that.
Well, I mean, when you go the standard, what we call the adiabatic dry lapse rate. Let's not bring any moisture into the picture here. Says that for every 1,000 feet that you go up in altitude, generally the temperatures drop by about 3.5 degrees. So, what is that? 5,000 feet, 5 times 3.5. We're talking about, like, it could be like 18 or 19 degrees colder at 5,000 feet when you go up, as opposed to down here at the surface level. The temperature at the 850 millibar level, which is just a shade under 5,000 feet, is projected tomorrow morning to be 21 degrees below zero centigrade or Celsius, which translates into what, Joe? That's like 2 or
Uh,
3 degrees below zero
9,
Fahrenheit.
18, 27, 36 from 30, 36 from 32. It's about -5.
-5.
Yeah.
So up there at 5,000 feet, it's going to be -5 degrees. So if you go down 5,000 feet, that's what, another 17, 16, 18 degrees or whatever. So that means the temperature, the ambient air temperature down here at the surface, translates into something along the lines of what, 11, 12 degrees or
Right.
thereabouts. That sounds about right for me. That's
Yeah.
for where I
Plus
live.
plus
And
wind.
then, of course, the New York City area will be warmer, more because of the heat island effect. But still,
Right.
it's going to be pretty darn cold out there tomorrow morning.
Right, and plus wind direction makes a difference too, because for example, sometimes in the wintertime, when you're in the throes of an Arctic air mass, a lot of times what happens in and around the New York City area, for example, and New Jersey and nearby, is you'll suddenly get the wind to go more west, and that tends to downslope a little bit. I mean, when you downslope, the air actually warms. So of course you're talking about an Arctic air mass, but so you get maybe a warming of a few degrees, but that could be the difference sometimes from being, say, 5 above 0 to being 5 below 0. Now, where we get the cold, this is a way that we get the coldest air here in the Northeast, is when you have a north wind or a north northeast wind, because that comes down screaming down the Hudson Valley, where it doesn't have that. It's not going down sides of mountains. It's just coming straight down, and the topography does not have, and the friction does not have an opportunity to really warm the air very much. So if you look at those times where we've seen bitter cold temperatures down near the coast, where it goes down below 0, radiational cooling excluded, okay, it usually happens on a setup like this, where you get the airflow is coming down from Greenland down to eastern Canada, and then going north or north northeast down the coastline into the mid-Atlantic states. But this time around, it's maybe a sort of a compromise of the two. And the air is cold, but it's not as bitter as some air masses could be. But nonetheless, we've got single digits and below 0 for areas up to the north in upstate New York and in New England. And also, you're seeing teens and down into Virginia and even into parts of western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. Oh, and by the way, and also down by where I am right now, the forecast low tonight is 20. Okay, so I may actually even
Yeah,
see
that's pretty
temperatures in
good.
the upper teens. And and I woke up this morning to a coating of snow.
Lovely.
It was nice. It happened sometime. I'm thinking between midnight and 3 a.m. Because there was stuff on the radar before I went to bed, and it was around last night. Temperatures were falling pretty quick yesterday and last night. So when I went to bed, it was down to 39. So we must have gotten down. When I woke up this morning, I was at 28, and we had a nice coating of snow on my porch and on the grasses and on the rooftops. So it was a nice little, it was a for this part of Georgia, it actually was a nice little thrill. I was very glad to see it. And as far as highs are concerned, tomorrow we're not going anywhere. We'll probably see temperatures that'll top out mostly. Joe, what do you think? Upper teens to mid 20s tomorrow?
In this area,
Yes.
in our area. You know what, Joe? I just simply said in general, the statement temperatures will be hard pressed to make it much above 20, if indeed we get to 20 at all. I know that the Moss temperatures are calling for New York City 23, White Plains 22, even Montgomery up in Orange County 23. I said to myself, really? 23 for Montgomery with this kind of air mass overhead? So it would not surprise me at all if temperatures at all three of those places, the city, Montgomery, White Plains, didn't even get to 20 tomorrow. It's going to be a long, hard press to get up there, but that plus, again, the wind chill effect, the winds are going to be 20, 25 sustained, gusts to over 35 at times. I mean, that's a chill factor in the single digits.
Right.
I mean, it's cold. It's
This is,
cold.
by the way, this is quality cold air. I describe this as quality cold air. It's not, that sort of dirty line border cold air. This is quality cold air. It is a necessary ingredient for what may transpire for Monday. When you look
Right.
back in the past and have seen the most heavier snowfalls, there is you'll find either quality cold air overhead, or it's nearby that a storm can basically tap it and drag it down. So this is a very important piece of this puzzle, particularly for coastal areas where oftentimes there are mixing issues involved. And having quality cold air around minimizes the possibility, or at least lowers the possibility of those mixing issues. So, by the way, Joe Rayo is monitoring the chat board. So, if you've got any questions or comments that you want to share, by all means do so. You can do that by using your Gmail account to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then you can participate in the chat. And you'll also get notifications every time the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on, which is usually 5 days a week. Uh, we oftentimes take Friday and Saturday off. We will be
I
off
presume we're not
tomorrow
on tomorrow then, right?
because I'm on the road tomorrow, but maybe we'll go on Saturday if things really start heating up with regards to early next week. So I think that's fair. So without further ado, we will now move on to the subject at hand, the subject matter at hand, and that is the what is going on or what may or may not happen as we move into early next week. Now, I will just bring up. Oh, by the way, Joe, you have sharing capability. I gave it to
Yes,
you. So
yes.
maybe if you'd like, see if you could pull up the 18Z European, and maybe that'll give us some clue because it's going to be in range. It goes out 90 hours, so it'll be in
Right.
range for the first period, and we could see if it shows anything. But I do have WPCs. This was issued at 4 o'clock shortly before 4. Well, this was at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So this is the probability of at least 2 inches going into the time period here is for ending Sunday evening, and they have a 90%, 95% probability highlighted in northwestern Virginia, and virtually the entire state of Virginia except the southeast is 50% or higher for at least two, and that extends the 70% line goes up into western Maryland and southwest PA. It's kind of on the border, the western edge of south central PA. The 50% line, I'm sorry, which is, yeah, the 50% line, which is the darker blue, 40 to 50%, covers south central PA, goes into eastern Maryland, and then it winds down into Virginia and western North Carolina. They actually, believe it or not, Joe, they have a 10% chance of at least two, almost into western New Jersey. And I wonder if that's because they're maybe respecting, to a small extent, the GFS, where it's trying to lift that precip up faster than some of the other models.
Right. And you wanted now the
Well,
18Z,
you have it ready to go. So when we get to it, we can switch to it. We'll punch it up. We'll go through everything
I'm
else, and then we'll do the
okay.
18Z European. And by the way, the
Okay.
okay, the probability of four on WPC, if we'll use, say, the blues being 40% or higher, also in that area in Western Virginia, with the light green being 30%, moving up all the way into northwestern Virginia and into parts of south central Maryland. So uh, again, this is early on in the game. It's a fairly bullish view to see WPC do that. And also, we don't want to forget our friends out in the Midwest, because the low is going to, the primary is going to be moving through. If you see where the brown is, that's probably the track of the primary low, right along that brown area. And Chicago is in an 80% probability of at least four, and the light blue being 70 to 80%, covering, including Milwaukee, into northern Indiana, northeastern Illinois. So, and the 50% extends far out into Iowa on one end and into the western part of Ohio on the other. So that's from the primary, and also you see the precip that's beginning to impact the east of the mountains, which you see that space there in West Virginia and southern Ohio. So there's just a little bit that's kind of, you can sort of figure out just by looking at this in terms of the probability. If you've got a low, say in central or southern Illinois, you probably have some warm front that's like this, and your cold air is wedging down the east side of the Appalachians. So when you look at the surface map here, this is typical of what you would see on their long range. I'll see if they've updated this. They went very aggressive earlier, but let's see if they freshened this up a little bit. We'll start with Monday. And okay, so this is the time frame. So this would be 12Z Sunday to 12Z Monday. This map was issued earlier today, so they haven't really changed it. But they do have, this is on their day four. They have a 50 to 70% probability reaching up almost to New York City, covering Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore, and the blue is 70 to 90%, as you can see. The northern edge of 30 to 50 is just to north of New York City, northwest along the New Jersey, New York state line into northeast PA. And then WPC for the next time frame, which is ending Tuesday morning. So this will be Monday morning into Tuesday morning. They have a 70% probability, 50 to 70% probability, Joe, northern half of Long Island. Okay, the southern half is 30 to 50. 50 to 70, New York City, Philadelphia, across southern PA, and then on up into upstate New York, north of I-90. They've got that probability of at least 2 or 3 inches pretty far up to the north. So you're right in pointing out that if this thing winds up being further south, it'll be something where maybe we'll get some snow, but we won't see the highest amounts. But right for now, WPC has got this area centered up further north. So let's take a look. I'm going to bring up the upper air, because I want to point out a couple of things that are going on that I think are really important with this, that are that we're going to need to pay close attention to. First off, we're going to let these maps load, which we watch the circle of death go round and round and round and round, but
If I
slowly.
recall yesterday, what I recall yesterday was kind of like it's kind of like a weird situation. At least at the surface, it appears like we have the primary coming in from the west, reforming off the mid-Atlantic coast, and then that new system, the secondary system, actually tosses it off to a tertiary, a third system, and the whole process runs from like late Sunday to early Wednesday. So it's a long duration type of deal here, and
But it's going to depend on
again,
it's going to depend on that upper low, because the upper feature cuts off. So all sorts of strange things can happen when you're dealing with a cutoff,
right,
and
right.
how it cuts off is going to make a difference.
And didn't you say yesterday that it looked like inside the cutoff there was like a positively tilted trough, and then
Well, a negatively
one way
tilted.
like
Right, it was a negatively tilted broad trough, and the system itself was inside of that, and it was positively tilted. So it was just kind of a
right,
strange dichotomy here. But I want to go back to the earlier this week, because we've seen this system that's coming out is actually the third system to come out of the west. The first one was the system that we had for Monday and Tuesday, and I'm doing this because I want everybody to kind of get a sense here of the players that are involved and what's actually happening and how everything is interacting with each other. It's not just a simple matter of one shortwave just kind of rolling along in the flow. That may actually would make the forecast a lot easier. But you have the block. And earlier this week, you had a very strong upper high sitting up in northeastern Canada. So I think everybody understands the impact of the block. We've been talking about it for weeks now, because that's been the primary driver of our weather since early December. You have lower pressures out in the mid latitudes in the Atlantic, so there's your negative NAO. There's a low sitting southeast of Newfoundland. There's another one sitting well east of Newfoundland. And of course, you've got this deep trough in the west, and pieces of that deep trough get ejected eastward. Okay, so now the first piece came out, and we pointed out that it was very weak. In fact, when we got to Tuesday, this is Tuesday evening, you could just barely find a little kink here, which explains why the system really wasn't any big deal. Okay. Also, a little system coming down in the northern stream sort of had some impact there. The blocking high is a little weaker. It weakened between Monday and Tuesday, just a little bit, but it weakened. And now here comes the second one. Now, this was the one that passed well to our south because it was being suppressed by an upper low north of Lake Superior. And then, of course, you still have this blocking high that's kind of pressing down on the upper low, which pressed down on the short wave. You still have lower pressures out in the Atlantic, and that caused this system to get suppressed well to the south. And they picked up several to inches or more in places across western Virginia, western North Carolina, and points eastward got less. But that system got ejected underneath us and has moved out to the east and has become a major storm. I'll pull the satellite up later because it was really impressive looking on the satellite. And now, of course, you've got this other upper low that's dropping down into New England on tonight and Friday. And if you follow the flow, you have our air coming down pretty much from Greenland into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. And that's our cold air. It's not coming from Northwest Canada. It's actually coming from Northeast Canada and points northeast. Now, here comes the third system coming out of the west. At this point, the block is much weaker than what it's been all week. You still have these lower pressures out in the Atlantic, but the space in between is allowing a ridge to build up. A little ridge. It's just enough. It's not flying all the way up into northern Canada, but it's just enough so that it gives this short wave that's approaching some amplitude, uh, some strength. And while the block now continues to weaken, the upper low, the short wave begins to strengthen, and you wind up with a cutoff low and a strengthening cutoff low that cuts off right along the coast, eastern Virginia, moves just offshore and takes a track from just east of the Delaware coast, northeast to about just southeast of Cape Cod. North and west of that track is where you would get the heavy snow. The north and west of the track of the upper low, and the runs today are all kind of showing this. That's how it's going to play out. That's how it's going to try to play out. Whether it does so is a whole other story.
Right.
And
So,
I'm going to show you, Mr. Rayo, on the NAM, one of
and
the things that's
and what we
gotten you.
said,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
and what I was saying yesterday, also, and what I was saying also yesterday, and it just emphasizes what the dissertation that you just said is, what's going to happen with the system that right now moved quickly off of the eastern seaboard, and where is that eventually going to end up, and how strong will that be, and how will that force the upper air currents for the system for the weekend? How is all that going to pan out or play out? There still could be some more adjustments in the projected track. Well, there will be more adjustments in the projected track between now and, let's say, later Sunday and Monday.
Well, here's something. I noticed this on the NAM this afternoon. Here's your upper low coming east. Okay, it actually looks pretty impressive. And when we get to the last frame, the thing that caught my eye is right up here in northern New England and upstate New York. There's a short wave here. Okay. Now that's forecast to really just kind of fall apart. But what if it doesn't? What if it winds up being a little bit more important? That could be a mechanism that winds up suppressing this a little bit more to the south. And maybe that's what certain models have picked up on. The UCMED picked up on that today. It was the only one that did. Okay, the middle run of the GFS has not picked up on it. The parallel GFS has not picked up on it. So, but this is something that I want to keep an eye on. It may disappear on the next run. The European did not show this on the earlier runs, and perhaps some of the members, maybe that's what some of the members show of the ensembles of both the European and the GFS are picking up on, is that that little shortwave that's up there in upstate New York is maybe just enough to kind of suppress this a bit further to the south. So I think that's going to be the important thing to watch here, uh, if that winds up becoming involved. And then of course
And
we don't know anything after 84 hours because that's as far as it goes.
right, Bill Rogers just wants you to explain, Joe, what is a shortwave?
Okay,
It has nothing to do with radio.
right. So when you have a trough, for example, I mean, let me see if I could. I'll bring up that U.S. The North America view. Okay, so if you look at the upper air, all right. No, not this view. I got to go to the GFS for that. Go something a little wider. So let's go to the GFS. And all right, so take a look at this trough that's out off the coast of the Pacific, off the west coast of the Pacific. If you look at the wavelength of this trough, right, it runs from Alaska all the way down into the subtropical Pacific. That would be a long wave trough because, as the word describes, it's a long wave. Okay. On the other hand, this system, the system that's approaching here, only extends from Illinois down to about Texas. So that's a short wave. I mean, that really is. So when you look at the flow here, these little ripples, those are all waves. And when you get a wave that, like the one in the Pacific, that extends for a couple of thousand miles, you would define that as a long wave trough because it impacts the weather, over an incredibly long distance. Whereas this one is a smaller ripple in the flow. I think that pretty much sizes it up. Can you add to that, Mr. Rayo? Does that make sense to you?
No, you did it. No, you did it
I
perfectly. And
did
in
it
fact, while you were
beautifully.
talking, there's been a discussion now on the chat board about the NAM, and Mike Talley says it's too far out for the NAM, the crazy uncle.
Well, look, The point is though that the NAM is showing that, and I think it would be, as you said, Joe. Being that we've been doing this for so many years, we've seen things like that happen where the models, have some sort of innocuous system that doesn't really look like much, and then it winds up impacting everything else, and it doesn't really show it till you get close to the event. So I'm just saying that that could be the reason why some of the models are doing, some models are being more suppressed or further to the south. Uh, but it doesn't mean, I'm not saying that the NAM is right. I don't know that if the NAM is right. It would
Yeah,
seem.
well, FLED or FLED Weather says the NAM model nailed the blizzard of 2016. That saved it. And I know what he's talking about because if you remember with the blizzard of 2016, all the models were saying, even the vaunted European, that we were going to get a snowfall of maybe 3 to 6 or 4 to 8 inches. And the NAM was going crazy, red flagging 20 and 30 inches of snow. He said, what the heck is going on with this stupid model? That can't possibly be. What happened? At the
Right.
last minute, all the other models jumped into the NAM boat. The NAM was right, and ever since that storm, I know it, what he's saying is that saved the NAM.
Right.
And there are people. It's so funny now when we're looking at events like this. Occasionally somebody will pop up on Facebook and ask the question, "Well, what did the NAM say?"
Correct.
And the NAM only goes out 84 hours. So
So we
yeah,
don't know.
but it is the
And
crazy uncle.
right. And by the way, look at. I have the European 72 hour up, and if you'll notice that the European actually does have this little shortwave there that's up in approaching upstate New York and northern New England. It's just that it loses it after that. So if the day run European is right, then then it's a non-factor. Remember, the European was pretty aggressive here with the cutoff low, forming it just off the Virginia coast and then taking it up to about take Cape Cod on what I would say is probably an ideal track for heavy snow in the I-95 corridor, if that were to verify, and we don't know that it's going to verify. Another thing to pay attention to, I mentioned this yesterday, we do have this trough approaching the west coast. There is a strong ridge that builds up ahead of it. So you want to you don't want that trough, if you're looking for this to play out the way the European is, you want that trough to not come in faster and dent that ridge, because if it dents the ridge, then you're going to wind up with a flatter looking. So instead of your flow looking like this, it might look more like this. It might be weaker, and again, you would wind up with a system that goes out further to the south. The Speaking of the NAM, I just we on the 18Z, since it goes out, you can still at least get some clues. If the NAM was right about the 2016 storm, and if you're someone that likes to use the model, and Joe and you and I are both, fans of the NAM, uh, at least up until here's how it makes its approach on the surface. Okay, so this is on this is early Sunday morning, approaching St. Louis. You see the snow area that extends up in northern Illinois, northern Indiana, up into Wisconsin, Chicago, Milwaukee, etc. The low starts to move into northern Kentucky. The snow area in Virginia expands, and at this point, it almost looks like what we saw on earlier this week. The difference being, though, that the secondary here, instead of forming out way out to the east, if you want to see where the secondary is, you need to really look close. It's probably hard to see on the screen, but if you look where the isobars are, you'll just trust me that there's a low that's forming right down in here, in near or just west of Wilmington, North Carolina. That's going to be
Right.
the secondary low that eventually becomes the primary, and now you've got the snow area that expands into southern New Jersey. This is at 1 a.m. Monday. So, there is some suppression going on here because of the height of the north and the cold, dry air. The NAM would suggest to me, Joe, that it looks like wants to follow the Europeans' idea of waiting until at least Monday morning to bring any snow up to New York City and points north and east.
Right. Like I said, I've seen forecasts saying the snow could start moving in as early as late Sunday or Sunday night. But again, the European and yeah, the NAM 2 now seems to be suggestive of holding everything back. let me know when you want to take a look at the
All right, yeah.
18Z
Okay, so
that
let's
came out.
run through. Let me run through the GFS surface real quick, and then you could then take over the board, and you could take a look at the European, and I'll have the 12Z corresponding so that when we switch back, we could see what the differences are. But here's the GFS tonight with this low that moves. Also, St. Louis on the primary. It's a little bit further to the north than the NAM and the European on the primary, southern Indiana versus, say, northern Kentucky, but it's the same idea. The primary dies out. The secondary, you can see it actually prints a low here. Snow by 1 a.m. Monday is up to just north of New York City. So the GFS is faster in bringing the snow area up. And then because you're dealing with this upper low, Joe, the surface low does the Rosenblum rule, where it runs out to the northeast. It looks like it's going to just keep on going, and then it just arcs back westward to east of the Delaware coast, offshore, and then starts to stretch out and just slowly make its way further to the east over time. So very, very complex here because of everything that's going on in the upper atmosphere. The upper feature very quickly, and I'll show you here. Here's your trough on the GFS as soon as the circle of death stops. But there's your forming upper low, runs up and down into Virginia. It's a closed upper low near Atlantic City that just sits there for about 12 hours and then eventually winds up making its way toward Cape Cod by Tuesday evening. So the dynamics are here. It's how, I mean, do they play out this way? Are there going to be some changes that are going to adjust this storm in a direction? I think if it's the one direction this is going to adjust, it would be further south and not further north, in my opinion. Now you got the 18Z European, so you take the floor.
Okay, so let me just do this, and I'm going to share the screen. Now this is interesting. Let me just see if I can. I'm going to share this.
And I have to switch the screen on my end so that everybody can see it, and it is there.
Now, can you see what I have there?
It's all, everybody
Now,
can see it, or they will see it, as soon as the delay catches up. But you're good to go here.
uh, this is the initialized. It was initialized at 18Z. This is the intermediate European for as valid for 12Z, Monday morning, 7 a.m. on the first day of February. And as you can see, Joe, this is where the area of 70% moisture is. Actually, excuse me, pardon me.
That's the
This is the
measurable
area
stuff.
where we have the measurable. Now this is 0.15. Right along this line here is 0.15 inches of liquid precipitation that has fallen from the previous 6 hours. That goes from 1 o'clock on Sunday morning to 1 o'clock on Monday morning to 7 a.m. on Monday morning. That's where the 0.15 line is. This line right here, New York City is within this area. That's between the 1/100th and 0.300th of precipitation. So it's literally it's just like a few flakes in the air. If that you want to translate that to 10 to 1 for snow, and of course all the real stuff, the heavy duty stuff, the oranges and the reds, which correspond to a half to nearly an inch of liquid moisture in 6 hours. That's still way out over the Atlantic Ocean, far away from where we are. Now, as I said, this is the 18Z run of the European. I just want to see if I could do this.
Is that the
Aha,
18?
I
Joe, I'm
can.
sorry. Joe, I'm sorry. Is that the 18Z, the 90 hour?
Correct.
Okay,
That's as far out as the.
can you roll back to the 72 hour of that? I just want to see where it is at 72. Okay, so your
There it is.
primary low is probably somewhere in northern Kentucky, which is what the 12Z had. So then go ahead and go to 78. Excuse me. All right, you start to see the secondary there off the, looks like right off the Virginia coast where I see the yellows. The primary is dying. And now, of course, go back to the 84. And the 84, this is the 84 now?
Yes.
Okay, so the 84, which is Monday morning, Oh, this is valid
1
0Z
a.m.
Monday.
1 a.m. 1
Okay,
a.m.
6Z.
Monday.
This is 1 a.m. Monday. So this is the
Correct.
78 hour. And I'm sorry, I'm sorry, this is the
84 hour.
84. And then on the 90 hour is where you have um, the precip just approaching New York City. Now, I will, let me get the European on my end. We'll go back to the 12Z. Somebody posed a question up there about,
I just want to show you before we
go
continue,
ahead, you
Joe.
do that.
I
I'll
just
get the
want to show
map
you
up.
this. This is the for 12Z 7 a.m. on Monday from the 18Z, the intermediate European model. But now let's see what the 12Z European had. That's the primary model that goes out to 240 hours. And if I do it this way, you could see we can jump now from what the 12Z what the 12Z run did for 7 a.m. on Monday. That's what you're seeing on the screen now. And now let's take a look. Let's go back to the 18Z, and you can see they're basically the same. There's a subtle difference in that the 18Z is kind of slightly, ever so slightly, trying to suppress the moisture on the intermediate run as opposed to the primary run from 12Z. But they're basically the same. They're about the
Right.
same as in each case.
Now on the 12Z, and I'll take it out. I'm going to use Pivotal Weather's maps here. God bless them. I'm
I'm going to
really
stop sharing my screen.
okay. I'm really enjoying um, the Pivotal Weather site very much. Just to be able to see the precip maps and everything else. But this is from the 12Z run, and at 1 a.m. You see where the secondary is, just southeast of Hatteras. The primary is dying somewhere in southern Ohio. The precip wall
Right.
is just south of New York City. By now at 12Z, it had a low. It's kind of stretched out a little bit, but it had a low just off of the southern part of Delmarva. And then by Monday afternoon, that low actually backed northwestward. There's another little low, little vortice that forms out to the east. But the European and the GFS both have this sort of idea of like a gyre in a sense, where the upper low and the surface low are basically on top of each other, and just rotates around until the upper low can somehow get kicked out. I will point out, by the way, on the European during the day on Monday, it's mostly snow with sleet down in southern New Jersey into central Delaware. The European did arc back the brought in. It has sleet, southeastern New England, virtually all of Long Island, and then down through South Jersey. It doesn't bring in rain. It's got all sleet there for a period of time. And then it starts as the low begins to finally start moving. You get some of the cold air comes back, but of course now the precip shield is weakening somewhat. But even the European, this is Tuesday night, still has some leftover light precip back down into New Jersey. So um, I'm not going to pull up the snow maps. If you want to look at the snow maps, you can on your own. Just go to pivotalweather.com to do that. Because the snow maps are just spitting out numbers based on how much precip the models are producing. So there's no, it's basically taking an inch of rain and using a 10-to-1 ratio. So if the model generates an inch of rain, it's going to generate a foot of snow, roughly.
Let me ask a question. Have you ever compared? Now I know that they don't do it for the European, but have you ever compared Pivotal Weather's snow numbers for, let's say, the GFS to the snow numbers that are indicated on tropical tidbits? Are they the
You know what?
same? In other words,
I have done that, and they're close, but there are at times there are some differences. One of the things that apparently there's a data ingesting problem that if you look sometimes on the coast, like near Long Island in New Jersey, it doesn't generate anything there, and in a case like this, you know that something's going on, but for some reason. And this goes back to last year where they were having some problems having the coastal areas populate. So I like to use the pivotal snow maps because they don't seem to be whatever algorithms they're using to create those maps don't they're not having that problem. And I know the question was put up. Tim Veltman sent me a message and a question regarding why the 18Z map is not on Tropical Tidbit site. Well, that's a question for Levi Cowan. I mean, he's got a terrific site. We've used it all the time. His site is great. A lot of everybody in the weather world goes to it, but he puts all that stuff that's out of his own dime, and he's got to buy another server basically to add room for more models. So that's the issue he has. His servers that he uses, there's only a limited amount of memory and space that he has. So
And pivotal weather does
he's got to
not
make
pivotal weather does
choices.
not pivotal weather does not do what Levi does, including the total positive snow depth change, the mixing in for possible sleet, which would lower the accumulations as opposed to a straight 10-1. They don't do that on pivotal weather, do they?
No, the positive snow growth. I,
Right.
I I tell you something. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan of the snow maps, and I'm not a fan of the positive snow growth maps either. I find that for me, the best way to do it is to figure out how much liquid precip is going to fall, figure out what you think the ratio is going to be. You come up with a number, and then you do your little bit of adjusting depending on what you think the temperatures are and any other factors that might come into play. I do it the old-fashioned way, Joe. I rather do it that way. I feel a lot more comfortable uh, absorbing the information with regard to how much precip falls and making that relationship to the temperature. I don't know. I feel like it makes I feel like that makes me connected to my forecast a lot more than just like looking on a map and looking at a number and saying, "Oh, that number looks nice. I'll use that one."
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what snow maps are. It's like, "Oh, I like that 33 inches over Washington D.C., so that's the one I'm going to use." I mean, it's just ridiculous. Um, yeah. Oh, by the way, one other thing, one other map to show that I think is important from the standpoint of WPC, and that is their liquid precip map. Speak of the devil, and because again, this will give you an idea of what they're thinking in terms of total precip, and then you figure out that okay, if that winds up being right, then we can calculate the snow accordingly. But on their forecast, Joe, on their updated forecast from late this afternoon, they have the back edge of 1.5 inches of liquid, northern Delaware to Trenton to just north of New York City, including Long Island and into southeastern New England, and they have a tongue of 2 inches of liquid touching the central New Jersey coast, and also into southeastern New England, they have a little area of 2 to 3 inches of liquid. So they're very bullish here on the total precip amounts that could be generated by this particular system. But we got to get there first, okay? And by the way, since I have this up, let's pull up Les Plumes. You know why? Because the plumes are going to be close to for the SREF model from Stony Brook, because the plumes are going to be in range at the very end, so it'll give us at least a clue of something. It goes out to okay. This is only the old plumes. I guess we have to wait till the new ones don't come out for another. Well, they may have just started sneaking out. Let's see, because they usually come out at 21Z. They have not started yet, unfortunately. Yeah, no, they're not in yet. I'm just going to just quickly just look at the 3Z, and it only goes at the 15Z because this only goes out, by the way, to the very beginning of the event.
You'll
So,
have to blame Pierre-Francois Delabrioski for that.
right. So for New York, for Philadelphia, we're talking about points south. So this is through 1 a.m. Philadelphia has 1 inch on the ground. Washington has again the Washington has 4. See if we get a station. One station south on the south side of Baltimore has just under 3. On the northeast of Baltimore, it has about 2. Let's go to Lancaster. 2. Again, this is through 1 a.m. Monday morning, so we're early here. Frederick, Virginia, has 3.6. Hagerstown has 4.2. West of DC, 4.2. Between Staunton and Harrisburg, as we go into Western Virginia, 4.9. So the next run of the SREF will take us into Monday morning. So that'll at least tell us, areas especially south and west of New York City will have gotten an additional 6 hours of precip. So we'll be able to glean something. And then tomorrow night on the SREF, it'll take us through a good chunk of the event, and we could really, go to town with it. Except that we're not going to have a show tomorrow night. So
I love looking at the SREF. Right now, I'm looking at for White Plains for 1 a.m. Monday morning, which is as far out as they go, as you pointed out, Joe. But there are two models. There's the MBN6 and the what's the other one I'm looking at? MBN1, where they show, and again, we're talking about only up to about 1 inch, but still, those two models shoot everything up to like an inch by 1 a.m. on Monday morning. And meanwhile, the others are clumped on down to just barely, above a trace category. But there's just two models that go, all the way up. You got to wonder what they're going to do, when the next round of data comes in and we take it to 12Z on Monday morning. Whether or not they're going to shoot up to, like you suggest, like, all the other models are saying like maybe an inch, and meanwhile these two models are saying like by Monday morning we'll have 8 inches, something ridiculous like that.
right,
Just goes to show you that it's right to have a consensus as
yeah,
opposed to
because some
relying
of
on
them
just
go
two.
off the deep end. Uh,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
I do. Speaking of consensus, the 18Z ensembles. Now, this is why I can't trust what people put up on the internet. Somebody threw up, and I'm gonna find this person. I'm gonna challenge him on this. If somebody put up some, I'm sorry. He put the. I take it back. I take that back. I'm sorry. I just realized he put up the ensemble of the European. I just pulled up the ensemble of the GFS on the 18Z run, and I don't see any difference. I'll pull it up here uh, so everybody can see. The 18Z and the 6Z, even on the ensembles, are very close. If you look on this particular map on Tropical Tidbits, if you ever want to find it, if you go to lower dynamics and you click on where it says ensemble member MSLP, mean sea level pressure. So it takes all the members, it kind of plots out a map of the mean, which is what you see with the isobars, and then these red numbers in here are all the lowest pressures of all the members, and they're plotted on the map. And you can see that the vast majority of members, there are a few outliers, but the vast majority of members are inside that 1,000 millibar zone and east of the Delaware coast, south of Long Island. So that's very close to what the 12Z run did. So that's something that I would pay attention to, if only because of the fact that if we're starting to see some model consistency from run to run, and being that we are now, this is Thursday night, so we're inside 96 hours. If we're already starting to see the consensus shrink, that could be an indication that the models may not change all that much going forward. It's not a guarantee. I point out the couple of caveats that are out there with regards to the trough that's up in upstate New York, northern New England, which is supposed to just fall apart, and also the trough on the West Coast if it doesn't come in any faster. But again, the fact that we're getting closer, and we're getting inside that range, and the models seem to be, getting rather consistent from run to run. I think the confidence level, if tomorrow's runs are similar to today's, I think we can take the confidence level up a few notches with regards to what's going to happen here Monday into Tuesday. Then we can start figuring out the specifics.
I only would say that using the 12Z European, the operational run versus the ensemble run, the position of the low on Monday is 72 miles. And you may say to yourself, well, how's Rayo coming up with this? to the very nearest mile and not rounded
Because there's
things
a
off.
sign out there that says low 72 miles with an arrow pointing to, you know,
No, the great thing
Ducky
about the
you
thing I
head,
like about
Lolo Brigida.
the thing I like about tropical tidbits is that you could put the cursor on the spot where the low is, and automatically you can see the latitude and longitude coordinate positions. And what I've done is I've taken the coordinate positions for the operational versus the ensemble runs, and there is a website, Joe, where you can plug in those latitude and longitude positions for, let's say, if you were trying to determine the amount of miles, both kilometers, nautical, and statute miles. This model will do it for you by simply plugging in the latitude and longitude numbers of the various points that you're referencing. So I did this with the European versus the operational and ensemble runs. Monday, the ensemble run has the low 72 miles further to the south, but then on Tuesday and Wednesday, the ensemble model has the low anywhere from 246 to 304 miles further to the south. That is a damn significant change or difference from what the operational run is. If the operational run is right, yeah, we will get a moderate to heavy snowfall. But if the ensemble is right, we'll get snow, but it may not amount to much more than maybe a few inches or several inches. So that's going to be the key. But remember, as I mentioned at the top of the show, last month for the storm of December 16th and 17th, the ensemble was way south as compared to the operational. And as time wore on, the ensemble moved a little more to the north, a little more, a little more, a little more, until, my goodness, the actual track of the low is like literally like 50 miles south of New York City. So maybe that's what we're looking at again for early next week. But right now, I'm just simply saying, still too early to start, guaranteeing or
Right.
even hyping the potential of a big snowfall. Let's just see what the runs and the models are going to do in the days to come.
Exactly. And I did see a question here from RZ, me, Hunter C, wanted to know about West Central Ohio in terms of totals. That's the area that WPC has some areas in Central and West Central Ohio with a 50% or greater probability of at least four. So I wouldn't disagree with that. I don't know the topography there, so it's a little tough for me to just sort of quickly come up with a forecast number. But if WPC is correct, I certainly should see them your area inside the 4 inch zone. I don't think the weather. So I'm just kind of curious. He's got my curiosity peaked here, so I just want to see how far out. I don't think the snowfall forecast map from the Weather Service goes out to Sunday evening, and they're punching up numbers in that range of like 4 or 5. Columbus, it gives 4, 3 in Cleveland, I think 5 in Akron. So yeah, I mean that would probably suggest that if we could go a 4 to 6 inch snowfall. The numbers back through. In fact, I might as well just put the map up here so everybody can see. Hang on a moment here. But here's your map from the Weather Service on their digital forecast. They're going for 8 in Chicago. They just had 10 the other day. 7 in Milwaukee. I mean 9 in Chicago. 7 in Milwaukee. Most of Illinois gets at least 6. Most of northern Indiana gets 5 or 6 inches out of this. This is through Sunday evening. And then the amounts you start to get into Sunday evening, you can see some of the amounts already being generated down in Western Virginia of 4 to 6 inches here. And they're putting up numbers, Joe, for Washington and Baltimore of 4 each, 3 in northeastern Maryland, 1 for Philadelphia and Trenton. But you get into that very light blue, that's usually just a coating, less than an inch. But they put the ones there anyway, so it's basically up to an inch in that light blue. But the darker blues are already showing up through Sunday evening, excuse me, in Western Virginia, Northern Virginia, Western Maryland, and also back through Ohio and Indiana, Illinois, Southern Wisconsin, and over into eastern Iowa. So I have to say, it's a lot more fun having something to talk about weather-wise than what we've been through a good chunk of the month of January. I will say that. Uh, we, uh,
And where
we,
did
we,
this
we, we
person want to know about in terms of snow amounts? in Ohio?
West Central Ohio.
West Central Ohio. Well, again, by the time we get to Sunday evening, if the primary holds together, West Central Ohio, I mean, down towards Cincinnati. And I actually, my wife has a relative who lives in Rush, Kentucky, which is not just stone's throw away from Cincinnati. In that part of Ohio, southwestern Ohio, you might pick up maybe an inch or two. But as you go north along the Ohio-Indiana border, you might, see 2 to 4, maybe 4 to 6, maybe even more than a half a foot by the time we get to the end of the day Sunday. So even though the primary is probably beginning to weaken by that time, it still has a shot, depending upon where you are, for a fairly moderate snowfall.
All right, let me just acknowledge Thomas Saul from on Super Chat tonight, David Schwartz, Forza, New Jersey, and Enrique Lopez, uh, all hitting Super Chat tonight. And Joe and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And just again, reminder, thank you to those of you with that hit yesterday and the day before for my birthday. It was really very, very generous and very much appreciated. The chairman, Scott Briller, is out on COVID run, so we do not have a Briller Jeopardy tonight. At least I don't think we do. But let me just check because I thought he did send something to me, but you know what? I'm getting old and I'm forgetting. I thought he did send something to me. Oh, and he did. I'm sorry, Joe. We do have a Briller Jeopardy here. Okay. And this is a special edition of Thriller Jeopardy. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Where does Michael Jackson Thriller album rank on the USA
Oh,
best-selling albums chart of all time? These are multiple choices. Is it third,
okay.
second, first, or fifth?
I'll say fifth.
The answer is second.
Second.
Right.
Okay.
The Eagles' greatest hits, 1971 to 75, is the first. The second question: Thriller produced how many top 10 singles? 5, 7, 9, or 11?
I'll say 9.
7.
7.
Um,
I'm missing by one. One
question th-
category.
right. Question 3. The Thriller video cost how much money to make? 250,000, 500,000, 1 million, or 5 million?
I'm going to say 250,000.
The answer is 500,000.
See, I keep missing it
Missing
again by
by
one
one. Okay,
category.
how many Grammy Awards did Thriller win? Was it A3, B6, C8, or D19?
19. I'm not going to say 19. I'll go one stop below that. What was the one below 19? 9?
8.
8? I'll say 8.
Okay, and then 8 is the correct answer. And what Joe and Joe regular rhymes with Thriller?
Oh, Briller.
Briller. The
Now I have
chair,
I have a
the chairman
I have a question.
himself, Briller Jeopardy.
I have a question, and we tentatively have scheduled a Briller Jeopardy a cooking Briller Jeopardy on Sunday, where Renata is in the hot seat. You fire the questions at Renata. However, in light of the fact that we may have a significant storm dissertation
Right,
to talk about
we could put it
Monday,
off.
maybe we could preempt that for another
Yeah,
day, not necessarily for Sunday.
we'll push it off until after uh, whatever it is we get. And
Now, somebody on the chat board said that in light of the fact that tomorrow you're going to be on the road and we're not going to have a Joe and Joe, somebody said, why doesn't Joe and Renata do a show tomorrow night on, I guess, my
well,
channel?
there's a
But
thought. Yeah, you could do a long fuse update.
well, the question here is I will have to ask the executive producer if she's in the mood to do something like that. If she wants to do it, we'll do it. If she doesn't want to do it, I think then we'll pass everything off until Sunday.
All right, but Bill
But
Rogers wants you to do a short fuse update tomorrow in lieu of a live show.
I'll try to do a short fused update for everybody tomorrow in lieu of the live show on Sunday. and if I'm not frozen, because again, the main concern right now is not the snow, it's the cold.
Uh, RZ Me Hunter C says, how much do you trust the European slash Canadian, which I didn't get to see today because I don't even know if they ran it. It stopped after 24 hours. Slash GFS parallel. They all have a stripe of 12 to 18 through central Ohio. They've been relatively consistent with that, but that would be a once in a decade system for us. Again, it's hard for me to answer that question or for Joe to answer it since we not living there does make a difference. So we don't know the topography. We haven't experienced the climate there. So I really can't answer the question in terms of the numbers they're showing out. But I will say that the fact that the models are consistent should lend confidence that you're going to get. I don't want to, I guess if you want to cut those numbers in half, you could say that maybe that might be a little bit more of a realistic type of forecast. But I'm just guessing off the top of my head here, so I can't really give you, you know, I wish I could give you a direct answer. I think it's hard when you don't know an area um, to give a number that you feel confident with,
I understand that
or
very much.
harder.
They had when I was working for a private weather office, we used to do movie clients, but this wasn't a movie. Uh, this wasn't this was they when they did various movies in parts of the United States, they would hire us to give them the weather. I was somewhat, not too easy with that because, as you just mentioned, Joe, various parts of the country have their own crazy quirks, which if you don't live there, you wouldn't know. Like, for example, what would a person in the Pacific Northwest know regarding the weather associated with a backdoor cold front?
Right,
That something along those lines.
right.
We used to do the Olympic Mountains of Northwest Washington, and I wanted to go into the sales office and strangle the guy who got us that client. I said, "What the heck do we know about the Olympic Mountains and forecasting the Olympic Mountains without even, you'd have to read up on the climatology and So yeah, to do Ohio, it probably is a lot easier than do the Olympic Mountains, but there are little quirks here and there. But wouldn't it be something if they did get 12 to 18, that they'd be celebrating in a way the anniversary of that blizzard from 1978 that hit right about this time of the month in January?
Right. Few people are worried about me driving home and doing it straight through tomorrow. It's not too bad. I've done it a number of times. I stop along the way. I purposely, just so you know, my regular habits. I stop. I'm one of these people that tops their gas tank off at every chance he gets, and I'm not kidding. The gas tank in my truck rarely gets up to under a half a tank, and I've had that habit going back many years when I used to work in New York City and would have to drive 50 miles in each direction. Every time I left for work, I just topped the tank off, and I found that it was really good for the vehicle and for your engine and everything else.
And
So
if you're going out tonight, locally or during the day tomorrow, especially early tomorrow, dry gas. That's something you ought to have already put in your gas tank.
yes,
But if you have a bottle of that, pour it in there, especially if you are either full or close to full. If your tank is low right now with gas, go to the gas station tomorrow morning, get a fill up, and then pour the dry gas in because that really will help you with the with cold temperatures that we're going to be seeing these next 24 to 36 hours.
right. And what I do, by the way, is on my drive, I stop I stop every 3 hours to fill up my tank because I give first of all I need to bathroom break or whatever. But even just to walk around, because to sit in a car straight through, I mean, even if I go an extra to go like some people will run their gas tank down to under a quarter or even under an eighth of a mile before they fill it up again. I could never do that. So I just, like I said, every 200 or so miles, I'll stop, I'll take a break, I fill up, and then go on and the next leg. And
That's not good, and that's not good if you run it all the way down almost to empty,
yeah,
because there are little fine particles, you know,
yeah,
stuck down at the bottom of the gas tank that you don't want to, you know, deal with. You want to always work with at least a half to a full tank of gas. And look at this, Joe. All of a sudden, we're like Click and Clack, the Tappert brothers. Now we're giving gas and
yeah,
car
yes,
information.
exactly.
Call this the Joe and Joe Weather and Car Show.
Scott Reese says, "Are you buying the suppressed look from the GFS and Euro the last two runs? anomaly or possible trend south. I don't know that I would describe it to describe the last two runs as suppressed. I just think that the European just takes a little longer to get the precip up here because it's kind of waiting for the upper low to come down and then for the surface low to just sort of pivot up and then back up to the northwest. Which if it cuts off, that's what it'll do. So I'm not really right now. I'm not concerned about it. Uh, but if you want to see a suppressed run of the European, go back and look at I think it was the 0Z run from not last night's, but night before last, where it wiped out everything. The UGMET today was extremely suppressed. The snow never gets further north than central New Jersey on the UGMET. So, but that one was the outlier today. So all the other ones were kind of lined up. The GFS European and parallel GFS are all very close. So I'm not really concerned about what they're showing now. That may change tomorrow or may change on the next run, but for now, I'm not too concerned. So
Maybe 100 years, 100 years from now, maybe hopefully less than that, but 100 years from now, maybe we'll be forecasting the weather with one universal weather computer model. Because right now, Judge, you think about it, all these models that we're looking at, the Canadian model, the European model, the American model, I mean, it's a matter of like sovereignty. And maybe someday, all of us will get to, all the countries will get together and build one model that'll work for all countries and say, and it will no longer be a case of looking at that model, the Japanese model, and this model, and that model, everything else. We'll just be running off of one model.
that'll
And
never
that's what
happen.
it'll never happen, you don't
Never
think?
happen.
Oh, well,
Everybody,
that's just a
every
thought.
we've got the French model. Um, we have the icon model from Germany, the UCMET. There's the Japanese, the Japanese model, the JMA, which I always kid around and say that when usually not to I'm not trying to knock the model, but it's very funny that when snow weenies are desperate because they'll start pulling out these models that you never look at. You would never think to look at them. And somebody will, well, the Japanese model's got, and it's like that's the sign that okay, you know
Which
what,
reminds
the winter's
which
over.
reminds me, after we finish here and after we shut down, I'm going to look at the no gaps.
Yeah, I'm just
That's
by the
the
way,
last
I
I'm going to look
I
at.
have been looking at the icon more lately because I've noticed that it does match up usually matches up to the European to an extent. It actually has an area of that really dark blue heavy snow that advex up from the south come during the day on Monday. Uh, it brings a change. Now, the only thing I would be careful with if you use the icon model, remember, there's nothing. It does not show freezing rain or sleet. So even though it does show rain over Long Island, for example, for a brief period, that could very well be sleet, which is what the European showed. And
Right.
the track of the low, it also does that same thing. The Rosenblum rule, with the secondary low, moves out to the east and then suddenly gets pulled all the way back northwest, almost into Delaware Bay, and then rotates back around and out, and then eventually actually does it twice because then when it reforms well out to the east, it rotates back toward Cape Cod to the northwest. So very
Right.
interesting. This was the 18Z icon. I want to just take a look. I know I don't have it on the screen here. I'll pull it up and put it on the screen for everybody to see. That's because the icon wraps up a nice cutoff low. So let me bring that up really quick. We're doing a lot tonight. Um, uh, Model wise. So here's the icon, very broad but deep cutoff low, Joe, that forms in over West Virginia, and then strengthens just east of the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula, and it only goes out 120 hours, but I imagine it takes a track from there northeast toward Cape Cod. Again, we would be north and west of that upper low track, which is where you would wind up seeing the heavier snow. So no one's mentioned any numbers here, nor will we, because it's too early, and it wouldn't. It's just too early, plain and simple. So we are continuing to keep our standards. I think, Joe, you and I both explained the possibilities pretty well tonight. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. Keep them in mind if this winter storm winds up coming to pass. You're going to need some help with regards to maybe a new shovel or a new snowblower, because you'll find that the shovel you have is broken and the snowblower you have won't start. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. They service the entire tri state area. They got every possible snow melt or ice melt product imaginable there, including Petalo, OmniMelt, GeoMelt, BioMelt, and more. Plus, they are Long Island's largest provider and the tri-state area's largest provider of rock salt. 631-757-1125 is the telephone number. Again, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, just north of the Southern State Parkway. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So,
And thank you all. Thank
oh,
you all for 231 likes tonight, Joe. Thank you.
nice. And we were up over 500 with viewers at one time. Scott Reese, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it. I want to make sure I got everybody again. David Fuller, Thomas Saul, David Schwartz, Forza Jersey, and I roll my R like a native speaking Italian that I am. Enrique Lopez, also roll my R. And Scott Reese, all hitting Super Chat tonight. Joe and I thank you very, very much indeed for that. So, no show tomorrow night. Joe may or may not do a short fuse update. And then I think the chances are fair unless you're busy. I mean, we could do a show Saturday night if it really looks like things are getting going. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
We could do it maybe we'll do it like in the late afternoon or early evening, maybe like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or something.
As long as you don't interfere with dinner time.
Which is what?
I don't know yet. It's a variable depending upon who's going to be here, whether it's my daughter or my son and my daughter-in-law or whatever. I'll find out. I'll let you know. And safe trip home tomorrow, sir.
Yes, thank you. I will take my time. Christina Pedia says, "What about sponsoring Brinkman's in Miller Place? If Brinkman's wants to sponsor, have them call me." Okay, they're right down the block from where I live. Anyhow, I go in there from time to time off of 25A. But let them, let them know. If they want to sponsor me, they can get in touch with me, and we can have a conversation. Okay.
Yes.
Shameless self promotion, I know, but if I don't do it, who will?
What the heck?
Exactly. All right. Have a nice night, everybody. Have a good week, a good Friday, and a good weekend. And hopefully, we'll see you either Saturday night or certainly Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.
Night night.